Okay. This conversation is about the 7 Hermetic Laws. These are actually laws and principles that I use in everything I talk about. It's the basis for what I think reality is. So I just want to kind of go through them. I'm utilizing a website just so I've got the list in front of me and then I can talk about each one of them. But going from the number 1 law, the principle of mentalism. So in my viewpoint, this is the universal mind. This is the idea that everything is part of the one mind, the one consciousness that's all pervading, and that everything that we do is connected to that, is tied into that, is somehow manifestation of that, and that by very simply dissecting or peering into our experience, we can also know what's going on in the oneness. That's also tied into the next one. I think these are all really just tied into one. The principle of correspondence, which is number 2, the as above, so below, as within, so without. That's the same thing, that everything is one mind, everything is one consciousness, and if you look at yourself or the smaller pod of reality that's going on around you, you also know what's going on in the bigger picture. You also know what's happening in the cosmic scheme of things or in the world scheme of things. So, and also what's happening in your interior world is being reflected in your environment, and your environment is also affecting your internal world. So this is the idea also that I have and know that's true about feng shui and environmental realignment, which is something that I do, is looking at how the environment is showing up to speak to what's going on in your inner realm. And when you shift those things in the environment, you also are shifting things inside. So you can change your health, you can change your relationship, money issues, any of these things by shifting environmental things as well. And then you can also say, what's going on in the world that I don't like, and you can shift something internally to actually affect the outer reality. So that is the principle of correspondence, and that's the awareness, the principle of mentalism, that everything is one mind, everything's interconnected, it's all one. I'm going to tie these all in as we go back through, but the number 3 is the principle of vibration, that everything is a vibration, and it's just varying degrees of vibration. And this merges into some of the other laws. That's the principle of polarity. So there's 2 sides to everything, but they're all one thing. So you have light and dark, but they're really just different vibratory frequencies of one thing. One is vibrating at a high rate and one's vibrating at a low rate. So it's all vibration though. We're vibration, light's vibration, matter, everything is just a different amount of vibration, a different rhythm, which also ties into the principle of rhythm, which is after the next one. We've got principle of polarity. So the principle of polarity and the principle of vibration are very tied together in that in the polarity, so everything's got a polarity in this game that we're in. And that's tied into the final law, this idea that the cause and effect is one of the other Hermetic laws, the law of cause and effect, where you can either be an effect of the reality that's going on, or you can raise your vibration to a certain place where you become more masterful, you become more aware, your third eye's open, and then you become the one who's causing. So it's all tied into one mental sphere. It's one universal mind. It's one lattice. And as the more conscious we become, the higher vibration becomes, the more we can play with this polarity and the cause and effect thing. So when something's coming up that's harsh for you, like if I have a difficulty that's arising, I always look for the polarity. So if something is painful or someone's being mean or like, betraying me, then I look for who's being really nice to me or who's infatuated with me right now. So I can see that the polarity is playing out, and I can admire that the Hermetic principle is in effect in my life and also in me. If there's something I don't like very much, then I can see where in my life am I showing up where I do like very much or I love. When I'm finding a disdain for someone, I can also find where I like them very much or who I'm having an infatuation with. So I can see that that Hermetic principle of polarity is always playing out, that there's always a full spectrum playing out at any given moment. It's just a law. Thank you. So the principle of rhythm is that everything is in a constant ebb and flow, a to and fro. So in this polarity principle, just like the ocean, it's always either moving in or it's moving out. In our love and connection experiences, we're either getting closer and we're connecting, or we're pulling away and there's a dissolve going on. So this is always happening. We're always moving in this ebb and flow. And our abundance might be coming in or it might be going out. You know, and we might moderate how much we feel the effects of this by raising our vibratory frequency so that we experience the polarity at a different spectrum. But there still is this ebb and flow. It's this push and pull. It's this high tide and low tide. It's the waxing and the waning. It's all, this is part of the dance that is happening all the time. So when we master that knowing, we can participate in, you know, when it's a low time, what do we do in the low tide? You know, in the low tide, you can dance on the greater part of the
Mom, where's
beach. In the high tide, you know, you have less space there, but there's other opportunities for beauty and experience. You know, as a surfer, you would know when is the high tide and low tide benefits. You know, on a moon cycle, what are the benefits of each one? A practitioner of that, like a witch or a magician, would know that at low moon or dark moon is a seeding time, so you would use the benefits of the dark moon to seed a new intention, where at a full moon it's a reaping of the harvest, or it's a magnifying of that gift. So the Hermetic principle of rhythm, you're working with that. And then we get to number 6, the cause and effect again, which I already mentioned, where if you're at a low vibratory frequency, then you are usually responding to life. It's you are the effect. Something happened and you are just going along becoming affected by it. You are the pawn on the chessboard of life. And when you are vibrating at a higher frequency, you become more masterful, and then you become the cause. You become the one that sets things in motion. You become the one that is dancing with the tides, with the rhythm, and you can identify also that what's within is also without. What is going on in your environment is also in here, and using how to use the universal mind to identify that and to break it down and unpack that and see how it's applicable and how it's actually serving reality right now. And finally, the 7th principle of gender, which is saying there's always a masculine and feminine force. There's always this magnetic and electrical force, or this aggressor and receptive, the giving and the receiving. This is going along again with the polarities, but there's always these two principles happening in everything. In physicality, that density of gender looks like the sexes. It looks like gender, man and woman. And as you spiritualize it, as you like make it less seen, you go into a higher frequency or vibration, then you see it manifesting in a different way. So on the mental plane, it would be more like creativity, inspiration versus like logical structured thinking. These would be the masculine and feminine playing out, the genders playing out in the mind. The emotional body too is going to play out in a gender sort of specific masculine and feminine expression. You know, we can kind of identify that in our physical world, like how does a female emote, and sort of like just to help us understand and box it up, like a female might emote in an external way and allow it to be fluid and really allow it to pour out, where a masculine might feel it inside and go into the inner brewing rage space.
Hi,
or it could be reversed.
Bite the screen. No.
Okay. And on a spiritual level, this is where we have Tantra and the idea of Shiva Shakti, the masculine, feminine, in the higher realms, and how it plays out as consciousness and energy. Not too much energy, it's hard to talk. Thank you. Anyway, he comes right in at the principle of gender. So this is just a brief, very brief summation on each one of these to kind of simplify it. This is really like my viewpoint of reality in a very simplified manner, but it does make life feel very magical to understand it this way. It's very much alchemical. So when we can understand these principles, then we're working the alchemy of life and understanding its transmutive properties, its transformational properties. And again, like we become the cause, we become the ones moving the chess pieces of life, initiating the changes. We hold the space and we understand the as above, so below, and we become masterful of that, and we become alchemists of life instead of just the one who's being alchemized. So, thank you for joining me. Until next time. Please, if you have any questions, I'd love to hear them in the comments. Anything you'd like me to talk about, or if you would like a session with me in order to go through any personal processes around any of these.
Bye!